Welcome to the Highline Herd podcast, where we dive deep into the world of horses and the people who love them. Join us for new episodes every Sunday as we explore everything from horse care, riding tips, and anything else equestrian related. To keep up with the herd, be sure to follow us on Instagram at the Highline Herd and visit our website at thehighlineherd.com. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Highline Herd. I'm Skylar.
I'm Shelby.
And today we're going to be talking about watering. We're going to focus more about watering in the wintertime than just year-round, just because it is still winter and we're getting ready to hit another deep freeze here next week, I think. So it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and we're also in that awkward time of year where with the temperatures and everything and the air pressure, everything's fluctuating right now. So these guys really, this is the time of year that they really tend to drop off on drinking.
Yes. Yeah, this is the time of year especially that you'll see colicking as well. Just from them not taking in enough liquids. I know that's something that I was worried about going into winter for Chance. But he's done great. Like, he's done fine. He's actually drank more than Willie has, which is awesome. So how about we talk about what we do in the wintertime to keep the water from freezing over, because that's a lot of what people struggle with most of the time. And I know we use two different methods, so talk about what you do.
So when you're watering in the winter, where your horses get their water from depends on just about everybody's farm and what their setup is. Some people, like I, are fortunate enough to have an automatic waterer, in which case there are several types of automatic waterers, but they all typically have a heater built in to prevent the water from freezing and the valves from freezing. Skylar has just your standard Rubbermaid plastic trough in her field, and she runs a cord from her barn to that trough to keep her waters from freezing. So that's what we do, but it's not unheard of for people to lug hot water from their houses to make sure their horses have warm, thawed water to drink, because even if you don't have a heater and you opt to bust ice out of your troughs, some horses won't drink cold water, some horses won't stick their noses in ice, and some horses don't want ice cubes bumping their face.
Yeah.
So everyone has a little bit different of a setup, and how you keep it from freezing is going to be entirely dependent on your setup.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you touched base a little bit on what I do, but we also have a big metal trough in our mud lot, which is where the horses are currently. And honestly, I prefer the metal troughs over the Rubbermaid ones, because the Rubbermaids that I have, they're the flimsier, like, plastic, where sometimes they'll break or they'll get a lot of holes. And actually in the past we've had it happen where some of the water heaters that we're using malfunction and end up burning a hole in the actual rubber. So switching over to the metal water trough is so much nicer, just because we don't have to worry about it like leaking or getting a hole burnt through it. So that's something that I definitely recommend using. But again, what works for you and your horses, do that. Don't, change things if they work the way that you have it currently.
Yeah, definitely your setup. It entirely depends on you, your horses, and what you have available to you. I've heard of people, they can't afford a water heater, or they're just not in position to get hot water out to their horses, and I've heard of them insulating their troughs or their buckets with straw and hay and manure. So, and the metal water troughs help, once they're warmed up, that metal helps hold that heat a little bit.
Yep.
So that's why they make a good option. The other benefit too is they're not going to crack when the ice causes it to swell if they do freeze over. But I think when it comes down to it, like Skylar said, it all depends on what your setup is and what you have available.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have multiple different outlets too. Like, we have an outlet run from the barn straight, like right next to where we have our little water spigot that's next to the water trough itself. And then we actually run, so we have the spigot out there, and it's just a pipe straight up out of the ground. when that pipe freezes, that's when we run into issues where we can't get the water. So what we ended up doing is actually taping like a heating cord around it, and then putting like a pool noodle around that to kind of insulate it even more, and that works wonders for the winter. That we even did that in our main barn as well.
Yeah, that's the other big thing you have to watch out for in the winter is hydrants freezing, valves freezing, hoses freezing, spigots freezing. And with hydrants, the best way to avoid that is if you are there when your facility is built, making sure they run those pipes in that hydrant low enough that it is below the freeze line, which I want to say is like 3 feet down or something. But, you know, if you're dealing with a situation where everything's already there and they just didn't do it deep enough, or it's just been enough time, wrapping it in heat tape and insulating that piping can help immensely.
Yes.
But the other thing is to make sure there's no leaks. If water's able to drip and freeze and build up in your hydrant, it does not matter how far below the ground it is, how much heat tape you have on it. It is trapping water inside the spigot itself. And then if that freezes, you're out of luck. You're going to have to wait till everything thaws out, or you're going to have to get a blowtorch and try and do it yourself.
Or, God forbid, the pipes burst.
So you definitely need to, when winter comes around and you're watering your horses, you definitely want to make sure your hydrants aren't holding water, you're draining the lines if you need to, you're checking your spigots regularly, keeping your hoses somewhere they won't freeze.
Oh yeah, that's a big one too.
I know this year I switched. I have a 75-foot hose for the summer. That thing's a beast to move and maneuver when it gets cold and stiff, and if it gets frozen, I can't do anything with it. So I actually switched, because this is what works for my facility. For the winter, I switched to one of those grow hoses. That way, it's super easy to drain, super easy to store and keep in my heated tack room so that it doesn't freeze and it's ready to go.
Yeah. No, I also switched over to one of the expandable hoses. I think just for the winter time, it's amazing. I mean, even in the summer too, it makes like recoiling the hose and putting it away so much more efficient because the hose isn't as stiff. So I definitely recommend that too, and that's what we do for our barn.
The only issue I found with the grow hoses in the summer is when you're bathing, they don't hold up to that kind of use, and they don't hold up to being stepped on.
Yeah.
You gotta go and find yourself not a garden hose. Unfortunately, if you want a hose that's gonna hold up to summer use, bathing, being stepped on, being drug around, being wound up, beat up, whatever, you gotta go find yourself a big, heavy-duty ranch hose.
Yes.
It's not fun. Like Skylar said, when it gets stiff, it's not fun to mess with, but in the summer, you don't have to worry about that as much. Usually, especially here in Ohio, it tends to get hot enough. It's not really much of an issue. And I'd rather, if it's going to hold up to the use and abuse, I'd rather use that.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you there. Yeah.
Because I'm fortunate enough to have a wash rack for my guys, and my boarder, I know, loves giving hers baths.
It's a nice wash rack, too. Yeah.
And I just installed ties on it, so it's going to be even nicer to bathe them in it.
Wonderful. Yeah.
But that's managing your water, managing your troughs, biggest thing. Make sure it's not frozen. Horses don't like cold water. Most horses will not drink ice cold water.
Especially in the winter.
Yeah. And that's one of the main things in the winter, that horses will stop drinking because the water's just too darn cold.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, most humans don't want to drink ice water when it's 30 degrees out either. So.
I was going to say, yeah, go and stand out in the wind and the snow, drinking ice cold water, and tell me you're comfortable.
Right. And then, if you've got those harder keepers, it does affect their core temperature. Yeah. Giving them cold water, they're going to be working harder because they've got to warm up that water now too, as well as their bodies.
Yes.
So, why would you want to drink if it's going to take more energy? So, yeah, biggest thing to start out with is make sure you've got water for your guys. Make sure it's thawed. Make sure it's at least a temperature they're happier with, That's the biggest start. Now, let's say you've done all of that. Let's say you've got your heaters and your thawed water, and let's say it's 30 degrees out and your water's nice and steamy warm, and they're still not drinking. What do you do then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know for you soak a lot of your guys' grain and hay, especially for your old one.
So, yeah, in my barn, after last year's instances, unfortunately, it was one of those unavoidable circumstances where it was a lesson I had to learn the hard way. And honestly, if I can avoid anybody else going through that, that's what I want to do. So, a couple of ways you can get moisture in them, and this is my favorite way in the winter, as long as they will tolerate it. If it's not going to turn into a hay sickle, you can wet down their hay a little bit. You don't have to soak it, just give it a little mist for a few minutes, and that can help get some moisture in them. Not all horses will eat wet hay, though. Believe me, I've got 2 that look at me like I've committed a felony because their hay is just a little bit damp.
You've ruined it.
Yeah, I know. How dare I? So the other thing, like Skylar said, I am a huge proponent of mashes. If my guys will eat it and it's, either the temperatures are doing crazy fluctuations, 50 to 20, 20 to 70, which is not uncommon in Ohio. If the temperature's doing those crazy fluctuations, if it's going to stay below freezing for a week or more, my guys get all their food soaked and electrolytes added. That is another way I keep their water intake and them hydrated, is the electrolytes make them drink more, and the wet feed, even if they don't touch their buckets, the warm wet feed at least gets a little bit of fluid in them.
Yeah, I try to do the same, especially for Willie. Willie likes his food not like overly drenched, but he likes it damp.
You're definitely gonna have to find like your horse's sweet spot.
Yeah,
a couple of mine don't mind it soupy. They'll lick their dishes clean. But I do have one, if I make it too soupy, she'll get the drier stuff out and then she'll leave the rest. So you're definitely going to be playing around with textures. If you decide to go that route of wetting feed, you're definitely going to be playing around with just how much water to add, just how long should it soak to get the idea. Because certain feeds, like sweet feeds with molasses on them, take longer. If you want a mash consistency, take longer to soak.
Yeah.
I've got dry pellets and sweet feed, and the dry pellets take all of 2 seconds. You dump water on them, you turn around, you turn back around, and it's already soup. So
yeah, and so like what I do for my guys, especially in the wintertime, is when I grain them inside, we use heated buckets inside their stalls as well, and those work wonders for just keeping that nice and clean. When Chance doesn't poop in his bucket, because he likes to do that a lot. But that is besides the point. So for Willie, because he likes it mashed, not like really, really liquefied, but he likes it just enough where it's damp, I will take that warm water from in there. And if I don't have warm water, especially in the wintertime, I will not soak his grain just because he doesn't like it as much from what I've put together. So just like, us and people have their own preferences and textures and flavors that they, do or don't like. Horses are the exact same way. So you have to find what works best for your horse and what they enjoy the most.
Yeah, like, I know I'm not a huge soup fan. I know winter comes and a lot of people are like, oh, soup, chili, all these hot pot foods. And I'm not a fan of it. And like Skylar said, every horse is different. I've got one that if I make it soupy, he is thrilled. He loves it. And then I've got another, if I make it soupy, she just looks at me like, what is wrong with you? There's too much water there. And she'll, like I said, she'll take the top off of it or whatever, and then she'll leave it. And I've got another one who will not touch wet feed at all. And so for her, we did touch on this in earlier episodes. For her, I actually will leave a slightly heavier blanket on than she needs. Only slightly. That way her core temperature is a little warmer and she'll drink a little bit more.
Yeah. It's just finding that balance with your horses.
It really is. It's about finding that balance and finding what works for you and your herd, because it's going to be different for everybody. Mm-hmm. I've heard of some horses that if you add electrolytes to their feed, they will not touch it. Even if it's wetted down and it's mixed in, they'll still be like, no, you did something different.
Willie was like that at first. Yeah. And then I got him the paste to try, and he hated that. So I went back to the powder, and then he started, accepting it a little bit more.
And there are different powder options. I mean, let's not sit here and act like there's only one or two.
Oh, no.
There's
yeah.
different brands, different options. I've got some really nice electrolytes that I wait and use until I'm okay, it is 90 degrees with 90% humidity and the sun is just bearing down. Y'all get the good stuff.
Yep.
And then I give the cheaper stuff over the winter because all of them are getting it so frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. They'll eat it. It works. So that's what I use. So since we're talking on electrolytes and flavoring waters and adjusting feed, let's talk about what you can do with your water. Fill it back up.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to flavor their water, there's so many options. And you don't have to spend an arm and a leg.
No. Horses surprisingly like tea, but they like different teas. So what you can do is you can actually, obviously we encourage you to do your own research, look into this more, and we can always post some links as well of resources that we looked into. But see what your horse enjoys. Test different flavors and different amounts, and kind of give your horse an assortment to taste test. And they'll let you know what they like and what they do not like.
For sure. I mean, I know for a fact I've got one in my barn that does not like mint. Surprisingly enough, she's not a fan of mint. And then, I've got another that does not like the butterscotch horse flavor edition I have. Every other horse drinks it fine. Valor thinks it's the greatest thing on the planet. The moment he sees me walk over to his stall with it, he gets so excited. The moment it hits the bucket's empty. Okay, I'm not joking you. The moment I add that to his buckets, he has downed the entire thing. So every horse is different in what they like and what they prefer. Some horses just adding a little bit of salt or electrolytes to their buckets and they're good. They'll drink it. Some want you to add apple cider vinegar. Some there's a product called Horse Quencher. Comes in a couple different flavors. I get the best results with butterscotch. Some like that. Some like tea, like peppermint tea, or you can use, if you soak hay, you can use that water from the hay and see if they'll drink that.
Yeah. Sometimes you can even put fruits and vegetables in there and they'll...
Yeah, you could add molasses. If you feed a sweet fee, you can put that in their water buckets to make it a really sweet flavored tea. You can give them beer. You got a horse that works hard, isn't a big sweater, you could even give that guy beer.
Sundown is a beer drinker already. I'm not happy about that, but...
Yeah. Beer actually has a lot of benefits for our horses. But
yeah.
That's a whole other thing. You can give them Gatorade. My guys are not a fan of Gatorade. I've tried it. Mine are not a fan, surprisingly.
Yeah, mine do. Mine enjoy it.
And that's just about finding what works.
Yep.
I'll be honest, I haven't found a whole lot that Valor will turn his nose up to. Matcha tea is the only thing he's tried to spit out. That's it. That's the only thing that horses turn down in terms of liquids or teas. The biggest thing, though, is if you're going to flavor your horse's water, if you're going to be adding stuff to their buckets, then you're going to have to be aware and keep up on that bucket's hygiene or that trough's hygiene. Let's say you decide to flavor a trough for your whole herd because they're out 24/7 or...
They all enjoy it.
Yeah. Let's say you flavor a whole trough. Well, now you're going to have residue in that, and I don't know about you. I don't want to drink out of a dirty cup, and I know quite a few horses that won't drink out of dirty buckets or troughs.
Yeah.
So, flavoring their water, adding things to their feed is, to their buckets, to their feed, whatever, is great. Fantastic. Whatever we can do to get those liquids in them and keep them hydrated. But when we're doing that, we also have to be aware of the hygiene and the cleanliness of what we're using. So you might wind up, if you're adding things like feed to their water, you might wind up scrubbing buckets more often in the winter.
Or dumping buckets more often and refilling.
And that's the other thing. If you've got a hard keeper, if you've got a finicky one, I have one in my barn that loves to do this to me. It's stressful. She'll decide she likes something and she'll love it for 2 days, and then it's the worst thing on the planet. She won't touch it, get it away. Or she'll go like a week, 2 weeks, and she'll be like, oh, this is amazing, give me more. And then the third week, she'll decide, no, I don't like this anymore. It's horrendous. And now you've got to dump a whole thing of feed or a whole thing of water.
Yeah.
So when you got ones like that, you just got to stay aware, you know? And just leaving it in their stalls means it just ferments.
Yeah, and nobody wants that.
No.
It stinks, it attracts the bugs. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, you know, kind of leads us into our next thing, summer. In the summer, your options for water expand depending on what you do.
Yes, very much so. And again, we'll touch base more about this because we could do a whole nother episode just about how to get your horse to drink water when it's warmer. But the focus is definitely going to be wintertime because we're still in winter.
We are, and with these fluctuating temperatures, yeah, it's a pretty big thing. I know for a fact I'm keeping a close eye on mine's buckets right now because currently our days are 60 degrees. But like Skylar said, we're expecting a sudden drop next week.
Well, and our days are 60 degrees, but our nights are getting into the 30s again. So, and that drop that's coming in, we have to be kind of careful. We got to be diligent and make sure that they are drinking enough water and, you know, keeping up with everything. And then we are also paying attention to how much they're drinking and when we need to refill.
Yeah, I know. I definitely and this I am saying to show that we are human. We do make mistakes. We do have misjudgments. I misjudged just how much water my guys were going to drink the other day because it was our first day of steady 50 degrees all day. There was no wind to add a chill, and I made the mistake of misjudging how much they drank. I went through the barn, made sure everybody had at least one full bucket, and I was like, all right, you'll be good for a couple of hours. Well, there was my error. I should have just gone ahead and made sure everybody had 2 full buckets, but I thought they'd be good for a couple of hours. That was my misjudgment. Because of their hair coats, because of the sudden temperature increase, every one of them drained that 1 bucket. And when I went through and refilled again, all of them were drinking it as quickly as I was filling it.
Yeah, that kind of happened to me too with the water trough outside. It was halfway full, and we have a big water trough as well.
Right, you've got one of the 150-gallon ones for 2 horses.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, it's half full. I'll fill this up later at the night when I come out and do stalls. They'll be fine. I had just gotten off work. It was 5 o'clock-ish. And I go back out that night. It was completely dry. It had been dry,
right,
for a while. So, it's easy to make poor judgment, but just stay vigilant, and just keep that in mind that when the temperatures do fluctuate, especially going into the beginning of spring, end of winter, beginning of spring, whatever stage we're in right now, just keep an eye on your horses and see, what's going on, and just check on their water and make sure they got access to it.
Yeah, and some of the things you want to look out for if you're worried about their water intake, some of the signs you want to look out for that they are dehydrated, that they are not getting enough water intake. So one of the easiest things you can do, it functions the same way on a horse as it does on a human or a dog. You take a pinch of skin, preferably on their neck in that triangle where the vet usually gives injections. You pinch up the skin and you pull it off a little bit and you see how quickly it goes back to the body. If it stays in that little pinch form for more than a couple of seconds, your horse is dehydrated and you need to start trying to get liquids in them.
Yeah.
That is the easiest way to check.
Yeah. And it's really handy too, especially if you're away from home, and we'll cover this more, down the line. If you're camping or you're traveling with your horse and they're not drinking, that's a great quick test to do and make sure oh shoot, okay, I gotta start giving you more water, figure out how to get you to drink.
Yeah, and I know if your horse will let you, I know not every horse is a fan of letting people stick their hands in their mouths. You can also push on their gums and see how quickly it returns back to normal color.
Yes.
To tell you whether or not they're drinking. Those are your quick ways that you can physically do if there's, hesitation in your mind. But otherwise, watch their behavior. If they start seeming a little more bleh, a little more fatigued, more easily tired, they might not be drinking enough. If they don't seem like they're peeing as much as they normally do, I know for my guys, they're messy stall keepers. So that's, for me, like, if their stalls are clean in the morning and they're usually, like, trashed, I know I need to adjust something.
Yeah, and even the urine color or smell can kind of give you an idea if something is out of the norm.
So why don't you talk about smell then?
Smell of urine?
Well, is it stronger? Does it smell more like ammonia?
Yes, so definitely like that more, I want to say richer. That's not a great way to describe pee. So, yeah, well, talking about, what to look out for with, watching their urine, definitely the frequency of it, like you said. My guy, Willie, I hardly catch him peeing, ever. He's a very private horse. He does not like
He's very
people.
proper.
He doesn't like people watching him, go to the bathroom, which I don't blame him. Neither do I. So that strong, smell of pneumonia, that's something to definitely look out for. Like when Willie is dehydrated, and I go to clean his stall and I just get a whiff of that ammonia, that's when I kind of know, okay, yeah, you're gonna need more water. I'm gonna have to start doing stuff to get you to drink more or offering you more water buckets. Just that's something that I look for, but also color. So if you're cleaning stalls or you're riding or whatever, you see them go to the bathroom, take a peek at the color. If it is, pretty clear, it's pretty, transparent almost, that's typically pretty healthy. That's pretty normal. But if it is bright neon yellow or orange or any other color, that's kind of a good, indication that something is amiss and you need to look into it further.
Yeah, now, with all that being said, think of it a lot like people. None of us have perfectly clear urine 100% of the time. And a lot of horses don't either. It being a little bit yellow is okay. Like Skylar said, it's when it hits that, neon, goldenrod pea color that you might start taking steps to help your horse a little bit.
Yeah.
And those are just some of the signs. What all those signs can lead to, worst case scenario, is colic. Impaction colic, to be specific.
Yeah, or other health issues too. But yeah, that's
Colic's,
the main one.
I was going to say colic's usually the one that's the most common.
Yeah.
That'll be what happens before any of the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
So just to recap, we covered, keeping your horse's water warm or at least de-iced. We talked about the different flavors you guys can add to your horse's water to entice them to drink. We talked about, wetting their hay, wetting their feed to get extra liquids in them if they're not big water drinkers. If they aren't fans of flavorings, throwing a blanket on them to, take their core temperature up a little bit. We talked about, just maybe they don't want to drink out of a bucket. Maybe they prefer a trough.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't like electricity and you gotta insulate your thing. So, we talked about keeping your hydrants clear of ice and all of that. So, really, keeping your guys drinking is about making sure everything around you is functioning properly.
Mm-hmm. And pay attention to what your horse's preferences are. Because I'm sure if you watch your horse close enough and see how they behave, give them multiple different options for, taking in their water, and they'll gravitate more towards one way or another, and that'll give you an idea of what to focus on and what to do.
They'll definitely let you know what they like and what they don't like. You just have to pay attention and listen, and you as the owner know what's going to work best for you and your herd.
Yep.
I know my guy, like I said, will drink just about anything I put in front of him, but I've got another that really is not a fan of mint. So if I flavored her buckets with anything mint, if I washed her buckets in something that smelled minty, she wouldn't touch them. She might if she was thirsty enough, but you never want your horse to get to that point if you can avoid it. So that's kind of all we're going to touch on in this episode, but this is absolutely a topic we can go over again, especially getting into the warmer months, especially when people start traveling more frequently, more heavily.
Yes.
So thank you guys for listening in, and if you have any questions, reach out. If you want to, we'll make sure to keep all our resources where you guys can find it, and a list of different options to flavor water and make it enticing.
Yeah. We hope you enjoyed this week's topic. Join us for new episodes every Sunday. And to keep up with the herd, be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Highline Herd and visit our website at thehighlineherd.com. We hope you enjoy the show. See you next week.